Alright guys, so now basically all of the construction is done and the last little bits are all added and everything. It's just missing basically the hoses on the back of the arms and the hose going from the spray gun to the compressor. But everything's done. I only added really a couple little bits here and there, only little tiny little things since I think last you saw it, but also added the little wires there on the back side of the smoke launchers, and then this one going from the, I'm not sure what that was. I know Link mentioned that the other version that's usually used on the Croat is an infrared light kind of on the front of that, but this one I'm not exactly sure what that's meant to be on the front of there. If one of you guys know, you can let me know, but I added that wire on the back there. And on that note, just to show you guys what I used for that, it's just a LAN cable. So if you just have one of these, I just split it open and you've got a whole bunch of just thin, I think it's like 1mm rubber coated wire in here that you can use. So the color doesn't matter, it's going to be painted anyway, but if you need some little wires like this, and they're just little copper wires in there so you can bend them and form them really easily. So seems to work pretty well for something like this. So up next we need to talk about some paints, but in the meantime I actually already painted the character figure I'm going to have with this, the little Ma.K 120 scale figure here. So at the moment she's not done, but you can see I went for a little bit different color scheme for a kind of light tannish gray color for her kind of, what's that, not necktie, but that part there and her shoes. And then the main outfit is in this kind of like light yellow cream color, and then I went for like a light lavender with pink highlight for her hair. And actually the skin tone, to tell a little bit of a secret guys, is not fully painted. So all the skin tone parts I just kept, those are just original plastic. I did do a little bit of painting on them. I did shade them a little bit with like a mix using the Mr. Color Lascivus skin tone paints. I mixed the clear brown and the clear red for the shading color. You can see around on her, like her legs there, and then on her face there's a little bit of shading on there. They just did just straight on the plastic, so I think it looks pretty good. And so this still needs a little bit more work obviously, but we'll come back to that later. There's one more thing that I do want to do before we get into painting it, so that's what we're going to do first here. But just to dispense with the suspense, here are the colors that I'm going to be using for this. Because it's got some Mechatro parts on there, I thought why not use some Mechatro colors. That'd be fitting on it, I think, just to kind of help sell the look of it. So basically the armor is going to be in these two main colors here from the Gaia Notes Chubu Mechatro color line here. This is light blue and ivory, so it's going to be kind of a camo pattern there between those two colors. And then for all of the joints and the kind of mechanical parts of it, I'll be using this ash color, which is a kind of like warm gray. Very nice color. I've used it a couple times before. It's really nice. And I have decided to hand paint it as well too, so I'll be doing that. But I will do the priming all just by airbrush. So once I get this cleaned up, then I'll be able to do that. But what I want to do here first is something that I've seen Lincoln do in his videos before, and I've been wanting to try it. And I wasn't thinking I wanted to try it on this, but I thought, whatever. I want to try it, so you know, what better time than now. So this is scoring on the kit, kind of vector weathering, I think he usually calls it, but basically using some glue here like this. Now you can use other brands of glue, but basically you want a thin cement glue, not like super glue or anything. And then you can use, I think, just kind of whatever, any sort of like metal tool or something. I just got these really old files, which are very old, and I guess hanging around for something just like this. So basically what you need to do is just slop some glue onto an armor panel, and then, you know, thinking about it logically, how you might get some weathering on there in terms of like actual physical damage and things like that. So I don't necessarily want this to look like it's like been in war for years or something like that, but just a couple dings and scrapes here and there I think would be pretty cool just to add to this. Like I said, it's a technique that I've been wanting to try out, so I'll try it out a little bit on this guy, and then, you know, I can do it some more on some other more weathered projects later in the future. At least this will be a good test for it. So really it's as simple as, you know, just finding a spot where you think it would be logically get some weathering. So let's say like here, just up on the shoulder or something like that, bumping along into something. Especially for my project here, I want it to be like a little bit more kind of like it's leaning to the front, so like the front of the shoulder there, where it kind of seems to already have a little bit of a scratch there or something for some reason. But you just want to lay the glue and then like work on one piece at a time. Don't like lay a bunch of glue on here and here and here and here and everywhere and then try to do it all at once. You know, just have to work a little bit slowly. So I love slathering glue on stuff, so This is right up my alley, I think. And then just the act of just like brushing the glue on there is already going to make a little bit of a texture because it's melting the plastic and like just your brush strokes of that. So be a little bit wary of that, be aware of that. And so once you give that a minute and give it enough glue to soften up the surface of the plastic there a little bit, basically it's just starting to melt the plastic. Then you can go in with the, you know, whatever blunt tool or sharp tool, however you want to do it. And then to basically just kind of give it one of these, something like that, just to give it looking like it got a little bit of a scratch or a scrape on there. You can make it a little bit more of a like pinpoint hole or something like that. And while I'm kind of liking these couple marks I've got there on the side, that one like or on towards the inside, I don't really like how that went. So you can actually melt that back down a little bit with the glue. Just lay some more glue on that. That'll sort of self-level itself back out there for the most part and won't end up really being very noticeable. Now if you want, you could go ahead and sand that down as well too. Put some glue on it, sand it, you know, reapply the glue to get the texture there some more back if you wanted to. I'm gonna work on this on some more parts of the kit, but I'll just show it to you guys just on a couple of pieces here just so you can get the idea anyway. And you know, this is a new bottle. A fairly new bottle of glue, so it's quite full, so I'm trying to be a little bit careful how I'm slapping the glue on there. Also, obviously with this glue, it stinks, it's got fumes that you shouldn't really be breathing in, so do this in a well-ventilated area, or you know, only do it a little bit at a time. Don't sit here doing this all day. You might pass out from the glue. The other thing too is that after you've done your weathering, if you got like bits sticking out or if you got like drops of glue or something that ended up hardening and looking not quite right, of course you can just sand it back down a little bit later. It's not really a big deal. So this one I wanted to do like a little bit of scratching here on the edge of this panel. And again, for the purposes of this kit, it's basically just to try out the technique, see how it looks, just doing it just a little bit. I don't want to do too much, and then later, you know, I can do it more if I want on future projects, but just little bits like that I'm going to do around in a few places on the kit, and then I'll get to priming, and then we can get to painting. Alright guys, so after the airbrushing, here's how it's looking. I'm pretty happy with the pattern so far. It's kind of a little bit hard to see because the colors are like kind of similar in their tone, but you can see some, anyway, the differentiation between the two different colors there. So it's looking pretty good. Here's the other part, like that. So I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. Now I'm gonna go and start doing some hand painting on this. So it's using the same colors and everything, just brushing those colors in. The airbrushing is basically just to kind of lay out the pattern and get a little bit of the gradient kind of between the two. And then I'll kind of work that with some more here with just some hand brushing, like I said. So then we'll move on with some, you know, wash and things like that over it. But for now, I'm using, like I said, the same paints and some Gaia Notes Brush Master here, T06. This is always the scary stage of it once you start on the hand painting, because your immediate thought is, oh my god, that looks awful. It looks terrible, because it always looks bad at the start, but you know, you just have to stick with it, and that's it'll work out looking better as you're going along. So you just kind of have to have faith in the process, basically. So So obviously this is going to take a little while. I'll do the blues and then the yellow color and then kind of work backwards from how I sprayed it. Blue and the yellow, and then I'll do the gray bits, all that kind of last. Okay guys, so after the first round of painting, here's how it's looking. Obviously, as you can see, I painted the smoke launchers in kind of a yellow-orange. They're kind of there. They definitely need a couple more coats because those didn't have an airbrushed coat underneath them, so they're gonna have to work on those colors. And plus it's yellow, which is always difficult. So this is also a Mecha color, light orange. So those will take a little bit more work, but anyway. You can see the colors looking much more pronounced now, or much richer, much more full now that they're painted on there. There's just that part, for example, the lower part here. So now I'll go over them again for a second coat, and that'll definitely start to look better, and I'll also work more on the blend there between where the colors meet for the camo there a little bit. But so far I think it's looking pretty good. I really like the colors. They're obviously much lighter now in the more opacity, but they're going to be darkened again later once we go over and give this a wash and some filtering over everything. So everything's going to be toned down a little bit more a little bit later, but I do like that it's all in these nice light colors, even like the all mechanical bits and all that in the light gray color. Like warm light gray looks pretty nice, but again, yeah, that's all going to be darkened up a little bit later as well too. But so far it's looking pretty good. Alright guys, so here is how it's looking so far. Pretty happy with it. I'm feeling like now it's too bright, but I think that later once we get some washes and stuff on it, it's going to obviously, once it's looking a little bit more weathered and not just so brightly painted, that it's going to look a little bit better. I mean, I want it to be bright, but I think, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how it looks once it's got some weathering on there. I'm not going to do anything like super heavy with the weathering, just do some washing, some detail painting, and then like maybe a little bit of chipping for some bits here and there. But normally what I would do at this step, now that all the painting is done, I would go over and give it a coat of gloss coat, but because the paint that I use on it is already kind of glossy, I don't really need the gloss coat on there before I can just go ahead and get into just putting some decals on it. So that's what I want to do next, is some decals. So I've got the decal set that was included with the kit, so I will primarily be using these, all like the caution markings and stuff at the top. For the main markings, I think I'll use a mix of maybe 1 or 2 of these. And also, because it's got Mecha parts on there too, I thought we need to use some Mecha decals as well too. So these are the Mecha kit decals that came with the Power Arm 120 scale version, so it's actually the same scale, interestingly enough. But so these, I think like these big caution stripe bits are like very specifically size and shape meant to go on like the power arms of the Mecha kit, and they're not really going to fit anywhere on this one, so I'm not going to use any of those. But like the Chubu marking, I think probably will end up maybe using one of those, and then just like these smaller like markings and bits on here, I will maybe use some of those on there also. So I think that will probably do it, just using decals from these 2 sets. I don't really expect to need to use or want to use much else from anything else. I'm not going to put a ton of decals on this, really just, you know, a handful.